Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha. This video ended up getting delayed by about 2 weeks because that is what tends to happen when one finds oneself in excruciating physical pain for days on end. A word to the wise, don't ever get old, it's not pleasant sometimes. However, 2 weeks ago, Ubisoft had their pre-recorded Ubisoft Forward live stream event, and that provided us with a great deal of information and confirmation in terms of the leaked data that we saw recently, and I thought it would be good to compare and contrast what we saw within the leaked footage and what was seen on the Ubisoft Forward event. Now, that said, I'm behind in fulfilling my obligations in terms of my weekly sponsorship, something that the sponsors have been extremely gracious and understanding over, and as promised, I do have a fresh sponsorship spot for the next month, so in Devolver digital terminology, check a look. Yes, that's right, I have a weekly sponsor because YouTube is YouTube, and because everyone, including the sponsor, enjoyed my little jab at Raid Shadow Legends, we'll continue that in an ongoing tradition by introducing you to the poorly photoshopped by me, Ridge Shadow Wallet. Ridge Shadow Wallet is light, sleek, and industrial. The little guy does fit easily in your front pocket, and as many people were asking, I can myself attest to these guys being RFID blocking. A Ridge Shadow Wallet provided me with my own, and I chose the carbon fiber pattern wallet because uniform branding is a thing. There are over 30 colors and styles to choose from, as well as phone cases, a Ridge Shadow knife, and even Ridge Shadow bags. The Ridge Shadow Wallet comes with a lifetime warranty, and the team is so confident in their Shadow Wallets that they will let you test drive it for 45 days. If you don't like it, simply send it back for a full refund. Get 10% off today with free worldwide shipping and returns by going to ridge.com/SidAlpha and use the code SidAlpha. Link is in the description below. Disclaimer: Ridge Shadow Wallet not to be confused with any terrible mobile games. Before we get too much further, I know that at least a few of you will likely be wondering if I will be discussing the recent public relations controversy at Ubisoft, and I will, but it will not be within this video. I thought it wise to keep these two topics separate from each other, as this video is specifically for a review of the game mechanics of Assassin Creed Valhalla, not the misdeeds of Ubisoft itself. Now, over the previous two videos discussing this topic, we reviewed the gameplay mechanics that were visible from first the 30 minutes of leaked gameplay footage, and then secondly the 7-ish minutes of additional leaked footage that contained a boss battle. Many people were quick to attempt to discount this footage and the game mechanics and graphics contained therein, stating that it was obviously pre-alpha footage and greater, more sweeping changes would be coming to Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I myself also stated that this footage was quite possibly old, and as such, some of the game mechanics may change, with additional game mechanics being added and quite possibly some of them being removed as well. However, after watching the Ubisoft Forward event, it can be said with absolute certainty that each and every game mechanic contained within those leaks will very much be present within the game itself.
And the truth shall set you free!
Now, along with that confirmation, there are still more game mechanics that bear going over. Some mechanics that we did not really see from the leaked game footage were things such as raids, where Eivor takes her crew up and down rivers, raiding and plundering nearby locations that they come across. This seems to serve a purpose of either completing side quests as a means of obtaining wealth or both. And from within that footage, we do see that in addition to the stun attack mechanics and the picking up and throwing of weapons dropped by others, the game will include a simple revive mechanic for fallen crew members. A simple enough of a thing, but it would help to underscore that manpower may hold a bit more value in this game over those of previous titles. And from this, we also garner that in terms of obtaining wealth, my initial assumption was actually accurate. Now, in my previous video, I had stated that I assumed that wealth could be used to upgrade your settlement, which the second bit of leaked footage seemed to potentially discount that. However, in Ubisoft Forward, they did state in no uncertain terms that Eivor will be the leader of a settlement, and the wealth that you obtain throughout your gameplay will be used to upgrade that settlement, which will allow you to unlock greater access to crew members, as well as other resources such as better tools, more services such as a blacksmith, new settlers, as well as likely including more powerful crew members being available for raiding and the like. Now, I would surmise that if Ubisoft were smart, they would also include a mechanic wherein your settlement would be attacked throughout the course of the natural progression of the story. This could then lead to either your preparedness in upgrading your settlement, leaving the attack being repulsed quite easily, possibly weakening that enemy that had sent the troops and thereby opening up their own castle or territory for a reprisal attack, or if one's settlement were not adequately upgraded, potentially damaging or destroying some improvements and decreasing the available manpower. Now, I don't expect that we'll see any true depth in that regard. However, having your own settlement and base of operations can provide some additional player investment, and it's an additional mechanic that I'm interested to see more of. This game will also institute the concept of dual wielding, further allowing the player to customize their game based on personal preference of combat style, even going so far as to answer the first question I had on my mind during the livestream event, but can you dual wield shields? And the answer to that was a very definitive yes. They also confirmed that there will be fewer weapons within the game and will instead be relying on the ability for the player to engage in further upgrades of their chosen weapons, leaning even further into that personalized weapon and armor preference idea. In addition, we did learn that Assassin Creed Valhalla will be reintroducing the environmental stealth mechanic, which will allow Eivor to blend in within enemy territory and to follow and track targets as well as gain intelligence. And of course, as this is still at least peripherally an Assassin's Creed game, the traditional stealth system that we saw within Odyssey will remain. However, with that traditional stealth mechanic still being present, we did receive confirmation from Ubisoft that there will no longer be any soloing of enemy strongholds. You can, as always, go in and eliminate strategic elements of enemy strongholds in order to make sieges easier to successfully complete, but in order to capture a stronghold, a castle siege will still be required, which means the player will not be able to completely ignore upgrading their settlement and obtaining larger numbers of more powerful crew members or soldiers. And of course, what would an Assassin's Creed game be without the scan feature, which is referred to in this game as Odin's Sight, which it's Witcher tracking. That's all it is. And within the presentation, we do see that the game leans a bit more into narrative choice, where here, choosing to kill Rued or letting him live during that first castle siege will have narrative impact to an extent. If you choose to allow Rued to live, he would show up at Oswald's wedding, whereas if you killed Rued, the wedding would proceed unimpeded. From there, if Rued does show up at the wedding, you have a choice to intercede and fight Rued yourself, or let Oswald fight him, which does offer other narrative segments. However, it is alluded to in Ubisoft's Forward that no matter what, you end up with an alliance with Oswald. And in my mind, that is something that Ubisoft really didn't think through too well. The concept of choice and consequence, where in true player agency with these choices, different outcomes can be expected. Here, no matter what choices you make, there will be different narrative elements along the way, but ultimately there is no choice that seems to alter the outcome. That is, for all intents and purposes, empty decision-making. It provides the illusion that your choices actually matter, but the reality is your choices alter very little, if anything, as to the outcome of that particular narrative element. There are also some additional non-combat-centric game mechanics as well. First off, we did receive confirmation that there would indeed be fishing within the game, which, let's face it, it's fishing, so there's not going to be a whole lot to talk about there. Yeah, you fish, you get fish, and you use that fish to replenish your food supply, which is basically this game's version of health potions. Not really much more to it than that. The next item is flighting, spelled with a Y, which is the old world equivalent of rap battles, and it is a thing that did actually exist in the real world. It is, as one might expect, a battle of wits to come up with clever insults that was often conducted in a form of verse or poetic nature, and within the game, winning such a rap battle will afford the player with skill points with which to level up Eivor. And following along with non-combat mechanics providing combat-focused leveling points, there is also cairn building, where you literally spend some time stacking rocks to build a cairn, a very common practice in the real world that dates back to prehistoric times. Now, in Valhalla, it would appear that this is more a meditative process, where you use physics to stack the provided rocks as high as you can. The completion of a cairn also provides you with skill points to spend on combat-focused skills. Now, I've seen quite a few people object to these sort of game mechanics providing combat skill improvements, but me personally, I really don't agree with all the fuss. Because when you think about it, Having a clear head and a sharp mind are of a distinct benefit on the battlefield. Having a game mechanic that has a meditative component would very much paint the picture of the character clearing their mind, allowing them to better focus on the task at hand. Having a game mechanic such as flighting also introduces the concept of forcing one to keep their wits and their intellect sharp, promoting creative thinking and quick decision-making within a very short period of time. After all, exercising one's intellect is every bit as important as exercising one's muscles or sharpening one's sword. But in-game mechanics only have so many ways with which to exhibit this, particularly within a game where percentage tables and stat tables aren't commonly used. So they settle on the most direct method of showing that improvement within the game, which would be to provide skill points. It's not an in-depth decision on the part of Ubisoft by any stretch of the imagination, but it is something that I find to be understandable in nature. There is also the aspect that you will be able to switch between male and female Eivor at will. This is another aspect of the game that I have seen a fair amount of contention over, and it is something that I really don't agree with all the fuss on this one either. I rather like the idea of being able to explore which of the two Eivors was voiced better without having to start a new playthrough of the game. And as both Eivors are going to be there anyways, this added player choice isn't really something that I feel warrants any sort of controversy. One last element that we briefly see from a recent game trailer for Valhalla is the capacity to perform Mortal Kombat-style X-ray attacks. Benoit Riker, apologies on the name pronunciation, the game director for Valhalla, confirmed via Twitter that this is a player-triggered animation within the game. Interesting inclusion, but one that seems to also be seeing a mixed reception. Assassin Creed Valhalla is and still remains everything that I expected from a Ubisoft game. No real creativity to be found, merely an amalgamation of game mechanics that they looked at within other popular games and decided to include within their next title in order to capitalize on what they feel may be popular. Ubisoft is nothing if not formulaic, and that formula continues to see a concerted shift away from the stealthy assassin focus on specific targets that we saw with early Assassin's Creed titles. Now, in Valhalla, we see more of your bog-standard amalgamation of shallowly implemented mechanics lifted from other titles. Yes, they do have a fair number of storied side quests and missions, a concept they very clearly got from The Witcher 3. However, as with everything Ubisoft, they fail to comprehend the nuance necessary to make such a system worthwhile. The Witcher 3 offered actual player agency within many of its side quests and primary missions, where your narrative decisions do alter the potential outcomes of those events, whereas in Valhalla, that does not appear to be the case. Valhalla is a continuation of the Ubisoft formula. As I said, copy and paste as much as possible while including additional elements to give it the appearance of a fresh coat of paint. Frankly, Valhalla does not appear interesting in the slightest to me. I'm quite certain that the gameplay will be enjoyable enough for the first 20 hours or so, but after that, the wide as an ocean, deep as a puddle development style of Ubisoft will hamper the game and make it difficult for many to want to continue on with the game and see it through to the ending. Now, I'm sure it'll be a lovely ocean, as most Assassin's Creed games are, with fantastic sound design as well, but there is an old saying about polishing a turd. But what do you all think about this, and what are your expectations of the game from what we have seen? I do read the comments after all, and I do enjoy reading what you all have had to say in previous videos about this game. And if you found value in this video or my previous videos, I would ask that you remember to subscribe and set bell notifications to all so you stand less of a chance of missing future videos. I do my best to earn my viewer support, and I hope that for some of you, I've done so here. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and I'll see you next time.